So 98% is like, it's not on a blockchain. It's not anything. It's just like, you know,
a number in a ledger.
A number in a ledger that's in a centralized bank server that gets hacked perpetually
with no
by
proof
people
of
all the
work.
time. They can just go into bank accounts and change numbers. And
did you see
the numbers never balance
what
out
the
at the end of the day.
incoming Treasury Secretary of the Treasury said from Trump?
Scott Bessent?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He came out and said that it's interesting that we had this war on crypto and they went after the FTX collapse because they were laundering money. And the money was funneling through, and that's why a lot of those donations came back into the politicians' pockets, which they never clawed back, by the way. Clawed back everything else, but not those donations. But
have you seen the ActBlue, all this ActBlue stuff too that's popping up? It's like, you know, all these like grandmothers who would like make $5,000 a year in Social Security, like donating $30,000, $50,000, $40,000, $60,000. Like, you know, thousands of payments. I mean, it's just total fraud, total bullshit.
Yeah, I think it's
money laundering.
Yeah, exactly. It is, and he called it out at the highest level. I mean, this is the guy who's going to replace Yellen, and he's
I love this guy.
making a statement like that. That's what gives me hope. That's the type of thing. We're getting people in these power positions that understand the dynamic.
Yeah,
they understand the level of the fraud, and I think Doge. Like this is just my random thought, but wouldn't it be amazing if all of the government spending were transacted on forced to be transacted on a public ledger?
It should be. I mean, I don't understand how.
And you know, Elon's going to push Doge for that.
It's unfathomable that there's no accountability. The Pentagon fails audits every single time. We have no idea where this money's going.
Trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars.
Yeah, it's
sickening.
I had a guest on yesterday or a couple days ago. His name is Mark. He was a former banker, and he was just talking about his time serving in the military and like, you know, all these different government agencies. And he was talking about how, like, you know, at the end they'd get a budget and like, you know, they might at the end of the budget with like a week to go, they might have like, you know, $200,000 left within the budget. And it's like, if they don't spend that money, like their budget the following year goes down. So what they do is instead of just saying, hey, like, let's not waste the taxpayers' money, they turn around and just spend $200,000 on just whatever bullshit they can come up with, like, you know, $10,000 coffee machines, whatever it may be, like just to make sure they can keep that budget for the following year,
right? Which
is like insane. And I've had people in my office before that work in, you know, different departments, and they said the same exact thing. They were all like laughing about it, bragging about it, and I just think there's just a disconnect there of like realizing like what they're really saying is like, hey, fuck the American taxpayer. Yeah. We're just going to exploit the system, and I don't think that crossed their brains. I don't think they were thinking about it because they were so far removed from just thinking about that thought process, but. Really, you know,
I would say
crazy.
In the beginning that's true, but I would say that I think Elon and Vivek are going to find a lot of fraud.
Oh, I mean, unfathomable amounts of fraud.
If those people are sitting and saying, "Oh, you know, I got $200,000 to spend," okay, well, you know what? We need a report on this, and you know what? My wife happens to have a consulting group that does that work.
Yeah.
And so you know what? $200,000 on that report makes sense. Yeah. And it finds its way somehow, some way back into their network of people, and that's not right. That's the problem. If Elon can drill that out, we might have hope.
I mean, there's so much of that. I mean, you know, paying $25,000 for screws on planes. I mean, it's like just absurd. Yeah. Like every screw is $25,000. I mean, this is just the kind of like insane stuff that's happening, and there's just so much grift, so much fraud.
Even if you eliminate all that,
all these politicians too, like on their annual salaries of what they fucking make. I mean, like it's like
they're better than the hedge funds.
I'm worth like $200 million, and like my annual salary is like $100,000. It's like what the fuck? Like
Nancy Pelosi is the only one who can successfully trade Bitcoin. She's the best Bitcoin trader in the world.
Jesus, I mean, it's
the hedge funds are seething with jealousy when they look at her portfolio. You know,
I don't know. I saw a funny meme the other day. I was like, I don't know what's better, a better trader. Is it Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, and her corn futures, or is it inverse Kramer? Like whatever Kramer says, the opposite.
Inverse Kramer is hard to beat.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. As like, you know.
So even if they get in there and they eliminate all of this fraud, right? They eliminate all of this waste. They come up with a solution to if you don't spend your budget, it gets reduced. Like they just figure out a way to optimize.
There's got to be some incentive to not spend the budget. I mean, you know, like, you know, I think it's like maybe like, hey, like, you know, your budget is naturally going to go down over time, but if you don't spend it, you know, you get to
maybe we'll give you more money.
Yeah, something like that.
Because you properly manage and save money, so now you can expand in your department and be more efficient and more effective rather than losing. Reward the people who out overperform. And save
Something.
money.
I mean, even if you give that department a small raise, if they didn't waste their budget, I mean, something like that, where it's like, instead of wasting,
watch how much
$200,000
money they'd save.
That's what I'm saying.
Watch how much money they'd save.
like, hey, you got all these government workers, and hey, like, we're gonna give you, instead of giving you a 1% raise this year, we're gonna give you a 3% raise, depending on how much of your budget you saved. You know, something crazy where it's like, instead of wasting, it might cost the taxpayer $30,000 instead of like $300,000. You know.
Well, the fact that you and I, who are completely detached from this situation, can come up with such common sense answers shows you that it is fraud.
Yeah. No doubt.
And my biggest concern, though, is that Elon gets in there and eliminates the fraud and eliminates the waste and does what he does best and makes it more efficient, or maybe even the most efficient it can be. The problem with the budget is that you can delete the entire government and just the entitlements plus a few other topics. So health costs, Social Security costs, military net interest expense, all of the sum of these costs are greater than what we bring in taxes. You can eliminate the entire government, 100%. FBI, CIA, every three-letter agency that there is. Everyone.
There's a lot. There's like
eliminate them all.
Out there's like 400 or 500. Like more. There's more three-letter agencies than years since the United States been established.
It's ridiculous. If you eliminate them all, we still have a budget deficit. So we're still going to have inflation. You're still going to need to create credit extension through the issuance of bonds to pay for the deficit, because the money you're bringing in is not covering your costs. And the way you cover your cost is through bond issuance. And that.
What about the argument of like growth, like GDP growth, like actually taking the shackles off and letting this economy rip? Like instead of debanking, tech startups and stuff that have like generated trillions and trillions of dollars of revenue, why not just like, and it's a crazy idea, but instead of like using the government to like go after your political opponents and cut off their access to banks, what if we just like said like, hey, like just treat them like any other business in society, let them get loans, let them have banking access, and let's not try to weaponize three-letter agencies like the SEC, the OTC, all these different agencies to destroy companies that are generating revenue and employing tens, hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Why don't we just like take the gloves off and like
That's a nice
let
common sense
capitalism
thing.
like work, right? Because then it's like, instead of the same pie, we can actually like double, triple, quadruple the pie, right? And it's like, then
Elizabeth Warren's brain is melting right now.
oh my god, I mean,
I could feed the world with that pizza, right?
I mean, seriously, I mean, like let's close all these loopholes. Let's just have something simple: 10% flat tax, first $100,000 adjusted for inflation. This is my idea. First $100,000 everybody makes adjusted for inflation, 0% tax. Anything over that amount, 10% flat tax. Keep it real fucking simple. Treat everybody the same. It's completely equal, And I think if that happens, I think the explosive growth in like America would be insane. I mean, we would grow by 5, 10, 15% GDP. I mean, we'd see some pretty astronomical numbers. But, of course, that's just common sense that it won't happen.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that I do agree with everything you just said, but also that is like the Keynesians' main go-to. Like, it's growth, it's growth, it's growth.